It was supposed to be a peaceful night of solitude under the stars. But something in those woods, something ancient and hungry, was waiting. This is my true story. Like, subscribe, and share if you're brave enough to go alone into the woods after hearing this. You don't know what true fear is until you wake up in the middle of a forest and realize you're not alone. And whatever's out there doesn't want you to leave. I've always loved solitude. As a nature photographer, I've done countless solo trips. But this one, October 2021, was different. I wanted to spend one night in an undisturbed part of Black Hollow Forest, about 30 miles off any main road in Pennsylvania. No people. No campsites. Just me, my gear, and the untouched woods. I hiked in 5 hours. Set up camp near a mossy clearing. And by sundown, I was deep into photographing the glowing orange fog between the trees. But it wasn't the trees that caught my eye. It was a figure. Far off. Standing still. Facing away. I only noticed it after reviewing a picture. I zoomed in. No face, no color, but it had antlers. I told myself it was a trick of the light. God, I wish it had been. Later that evening, I wandered a bit, wanted to scout for morning shots. About 300 feet from my camp, I found it. A circle of stones, all carved with spirals and sharp symbols. In the center, a small pile of bones and black feathers. Fresh blood. Still wet. No animals in sight. No sounds. Just an overwhelming feeling of wrong. I turned to leave, and heard something crunch behind me. But when I spun around, nothing was there. Just trees. And one of them seemed to have a handprint pressed into the bark, dripping something dark. I didn't sleep that night. At around 1 a.m., my trail cam started going off, motion detection. I checked the footage. Every frame showed the same thing. My tent. Me inside. And something slowly walking around it. But I never heard footsteps. Never saw shadows. Just the camera catching a tall, thin silhouette. Arms too long. Head tilted. And antlers. When I opened the tent zipper to look, there was nothing. Just the sounds of breathing that weren't mine. And something whispered inches from my ear. Stay until the dark forgets you. I tried to leave at sunrise. But every path I took looped back to camp. No signal. GPS glitched out. Compass spun. Then I heard it. A woman's voice crying softly from the ground. I dropped to my knees, pressed my ear to the soil. The crying turned into chanting. Foreign words. Backwards speech. And then, a scream. From under the earth. The ground split. Just a hairline crack. And from it crawled fingers, gray, rotten fingers. Trying to pull themselves out. I ran. Didn't pack. Didn't breathe. Just ran. I found a trail. Started sprinting, praying it led somewhere. That's when I saw the man. Or what looked like a man. Naked. Covered in mud. Standing still in the middle of the path. I shouted. No response. Tried to go around. He mirrored me. Every move. Every step. No expression. And then he opened his mouth. Wide. Too wide. Jaw stretching like it was broken. And from inside came my own voice. You shouldn't have come here. I blacked out. When I woke, I was outside the forest entrance, laying in the gravel. It was the next day. My car was there. The time on my phone, 6:56 a.m. Then it glitched to 7:01. I checked my camera. Every photo was corrupted, except one. A close-up of my face while I slept in the tent. Only, I never took it. And in the background, standing right behind the tent wall, was that thing with the antlers. It's been 3 years. I still wake up at exactly 3:17 a.m. I still hear the voice in the dirt. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I smell moss, blood, and smoke. Whatever I saw in that forest, it wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was waiting. And I think it still is. If you think you're brave enough to go alone into the woods, make sure the woods don't recognize you. Because once they do, you belong to them. In my 5 years as a volunteer for a wilderness search and rescue team, I've seen people vanish in ways that don't make sense. No blood. No struggle. Just gone. But one case still haunts me. Because I found what took him. And it almost took me too. It was early November. Cold, crisp. We got a call about a 22-year-old hiker named Daniel Whitmore who hadn't returned from a solo backpacking trip in the Cascade Range in Washington. Experienced, smart, healthy. Should have been back in 2 days. He wasn't. We found his car at the trailhead, locked, nothing suspicious. But about 3 miles in, I noticed something strange. Birds had stopped chirping. Like someone had muted the entire forest. And the deeper we went, the heavier everything felt. Like walking into a place we weren't welcome. We found Daniel's tent. Zipped shut. Inside, sleeping bag, uneaten food, flashlight with full battery. And his journal. The last entry said, "Something is circling the camp every night. It knows I'm alone." I thought it was a bear. But bears don't whisper your name. My partner radioed it in. I kept reading. The entries got worse. He talked about trees watching him. Voices calling from the canopy. A figure that stood in the fog but never moved. The last line. "It's learning how to sound like me." We split up in pairs. I was with a guy named Mark. About an hour in, we hit a thick fog wall. It rolled in like a wave, fast and cold. We started hearing something. Crunching leaves. Snapping twigs. But it wasn't moving naturally. It would take one step, then wait. Then another. Closer. Then came the voice. "Mark, come here." But it wasn't me saying it. And it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the trees. Mark's face went pale. He pulled his radio. Then the voice called again. "Help me, it's cold." It sounded like Daniel. We stumbled into a clearing where the fog lifted just slightly. And in the center was a tree. Taller than the others. But it looked wrong. Its trunk was swollen and gnarled, like it was growing over something. And from inside it, we heard screaming. Muffled, like someone was trapped beneath the bark. Mark backed away. I approached. And I saw it. A human face, stretched and petrified in the grain of the tree. Eyes frozen open. Mouth mid-scream. It was Daniel. I turned to tell Mark we found him. But Mark wasn't behind me anymore. The person standing there looked like Mark. Same build. Same jacket. But his face was just slightly off. The eyes too wide. The mouth twitching at the corners. And when he spoke, "We should stay. It's safe here now." That's when I ran. Tripped over roots, scraped my arms, dropped the radio. Didn't care. I ran until the air felt warm again. Until I saw the ranger truck. They found me the next morning, passed out near the trailhead. They never found Daniel. They never found Mark either. But a week later, Daniel's journal showed up at the ranger station. Wrapped in leaves. No prints. Just one new entry written after the last one. One that wasn't there when I read it. It said, "I'm part of the forest now. And soon, so will you." Now, when people ask why I quit search and rescue, I lie. I say it was burnout. Too much stress. But the truth is, sometimes I still hear it at night. That voice. From just outside my bedroom window. It sounds like Mark. Or Daniel. Or worse, it sounds like me. Next time you hike deep into the forest, and the woods go quiet, leave. Before something else decides to speak with your voice. When my grandfather passed, he left me a piece of land in the Blue Ridge Mountains. No one in my family wanted it. Too remote. Too broken down. But I did. I wanted to disconnect. Heal. I should have listened to my family. Because that cabin wasn't empty. I arrived on a Friday in mid-November. The road was narrow and half frozen. The cabin stood like a scar in the forest. Dark wood, collapsed porch, moss crawling up the stone walls. But something about it felt familiar. Like I'd been there before. Inside, it was dust and silence. The fireplace still worked. The water didn't. There was no cell service. No Wi-Fi. Just an old clock on the wall. And a door in the hallway that wouldn't open. That night, I lit a fire, made tea, and curled up with my grandfather's old books. Around midnight I heard it. Scratching. Soft, deliberate scratching, coming from inside the walls. Then footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Above me. There was no second floor. I grabbed my flashlight and searched the attic hatch. Nothing. But when I returned to the living room, the fire was out. And the clock was stopped at 3:33 a.m. The next day, I tried the locked door again. Still wouldn't budge. But I noticed something I hadn't before. Scratches all around the frame. And a single word carved into the wood. Forget. Later, while unpacking, I found my grandfather's journal. Flipping through, I found pages torn out. But one remained. The thing in the cabin remembers me. I locked it in. But it dreams in the walls. It can't speak, only copy. If it calls your name, don't answer. That night, I locked every door and window. At 3:33 a.m. on the dot, I woke to hear someone walking in the hallway. Floorboards creaking. I stayed silent. Then came the voice. Soft. Whispering. Claire, are you awake? It was my grandfather's voice. He's been dead for 6 months. Claire, it's cold in here. Open the door. But I remembered the journal. I didn't answer. I waited. Until the footsteps stopped. I broke a window. Climbed out. Ran through the woods in broad daylight until I hit a ranger station 5 miles away. I told them I was chased, stalked, trapped. They looked at me like I was insane. But one ranger, an older man, pulled me aside later and whispered, "We don't talk about that cabin. You're lucky you didn't open the door. It doesn't like to be forgotten." I sold the property. Haven't gone back. But a month later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a new photo. Of me. Standing in front of the cabin. But I don't remember going back. I don't remember that moment. And behind me, in the photo, someone else is standing at the window. It's me. Staring out. Smiling. Some doors were never meant to be opened. And some voices aren't yours to trust. Subscribe for more true horror stories like this. And if you hear someone calling your name in the dark, don't answer.